available. We want to make this recording available to all of you. We wanted to double check it or also make it as a pedagogical resource. So thank you very much for being there. Welcome, everybody. This is the first session, the first installment of our Spring 2025 Global Perspectives on World Language Speaker Series, which is a great new initiative that we are developing together in partnership between the Stanford World Language Project and USC Dornsife Center for Languages and Cultures. We are really, as I was saying, honored and delighted that you choose to spend your afternoon, part of your afternoon with us after what may have been possibly a hard day of work. And here you are all ready to learn and share something different and get to know other people and exchange ideas. And by way of exchanging those ideas with other people that we may or may not know, in a way also reconnect with our professional selves, with our professional sense of well-being, and with our humanity. Because in a world that's complicated, that is something that we need to keep in contact with that part of ourselves. So first, I wanted to acknowledge that like good things in life, this comes to be as the product of collaborating, joining forces, joining visions, and the opportunity, and simply like, hey, Evgeny, shall we just organize something? Come on, let's get to it. And then the generosity of the speakers that are going to be part of this. It takes an instant, it takes a spark of a moment, but in the end is the work, is the goodwill and good comradeship. So I wanted to acknowledge and give the word to one of the partners in crime, beautiful crime, this one it is, Dr. Evgeny Dengov, who is from the director of the Center of Languages and Cultures at the University of Southern California, and one of the responsible people for making this actually happen. Evgeny, who are you? Tell us a little bit about you.
You pretty much said, Eduardo, everything I wanted to say about myself. So yeah, I'm a director of the Center of Languages and Cultures. But instead of a long introduction, let me share with you a link to the center's one of the center's babies, and which is the Language Inclusive Teaching Conference that is in the third year of its making. So we're doing this annual conference where we discuss the questions of inclusivity, which is now not a very fashionable topic, at least according to Washington, but I think it's important for us to teach inclusively and especially uh, uh, do consider the question of gender inclusivity. So I invite you all to join us on April 4th for this free online wonderful event. There will be 2 keynote speakers, a workshop, and the panel presentations on that topic. So I hope you will enjoy it and hope you will be able to come. So yeah.
This is super cool. You know what? We are also going to send a follow-up message with these opportunities so that you have them in one place, in one beautiful email. So thank you so much, Evgeny, for sharing. I mean, that's another word to describe Evgeny, but he wouldn't say he's generous. So, I mean, like, that's no small thing to say. Thank you. Well, let me tell you just a little bit about me. Eduardo Muñoz Muñoz. I'm the director of the Stanford World Language Project and also an associate professor at San Jose State University. It is an honor and a privilege for me to spend days while I'm driving in my commutes and say, what can we organize next? Because we really have fun with these kind of events. And we are here to serve. And I'm going to be also your point person in case you need any support regarding this experience or anything comes up. So, I mean, you can also reach out to me. Possibly you've seen that you've been getting those emails from me. Again, Eduardo Muñoz at your service. Thank you so much. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Stanford World Language Project. What is that? And there is a reason why I'm telling you about this. The reason is going to be the attendance, which is the next section. But first, let me tell you what we are about. Stanford World Language Project is a public initiative in the context of a private institution. Yeah, we are part of Stanford, but this is actually part of an initiative by the California legislature to support professionals, educators, learning. We are one of 7 sites of the California World Language Project, which is in itself part of the California Subject Matter Project. You may have heard about the California Math Project, California PE Project, California Reading and Literature Project. All those are sister projects to the California World Language Project. It's almost like it's like a tree. It's exactly like a tree. You got the big umbrella, then you got the projects for the subjects, and then each project is going to have a number of sites. So Stanford Language Project is one of those. That is to say that us organizing this is basically your tax dollars at work. And also, you may be perhaps not even from California, or you may not even be from the United States, which is all fantastic because we, California, we are generous and definitely we want to share the knowledge because sharing is caring. So welcome, you are most welcome to be here. But that is to say that being a public initiative, we need to talk about a number of things that we do. We also do, for example, a strand online, which is connecting culture and language, effective strategies for teaching cultural in Mandarin classes. And this is a workshop that's coming pretty soon. You can register there, also online. You have another strand that is about ethnic studies as it crosses with heritage Spanish. And then we have another strand that is going to be, oh, look who's there, Evgeny as well. So it's going to be an intensive workshop in June, 3 days, is kind of bootcamp style on creativity. So stay tuned for these opportunities and pass the word, okay? The reason why we are presenting this, and we would say that we are presenting this as a very reduced price, is precise. Not everything can be free like this, but these are reduced price, is because we are subsidized, because we are a public initiative. For that matter, we need to talk about attendance. Attendance is important because it's what allows us to tell the California legislature that we are useful, that we serve people, that we have accountability. That's why we do it. How are we going to do it? Well, I'm going to put a link in the chat, and there's going to be a QR form on the screen where you're going to see a form to complete. That form is not going to take too long to complete. And if you don't know something, don't worry, just answer randomly, because when you answer those questions, they will go to a spreadsheet and we will fix it there, okay? So when that is happening right now, that's the attendance. How many hours are we going to be doing for this? We are going to be doing 2 hours for today. That's what we are doing. Let me put it in the chat. When you start completing this, it's 2 hours. What happens if you're in a private school? It doesn't matter. Just put anything in there. If you kind of find the code that defines your institution, if you are in a public school in California, which is the drop down, that's more or less what's going to show. If you're out of California, same thing. Just answer anything, okay? And then we'll fix it on our end. And to confirm, number of hours, 2 hours is what we are entering there for today. So I'm going to leave you a few, like a minute, 1 minute or so. It's pretty fast. And if anybody needs help, I can help with the troubleshooting. Okay, okay. Everybody being able to, we're not done. We can still have a few more seconds. Just checking that people are being able to access it. If you have any issue, you can unmute and ask.
So I'm coming to you from the East Coast, And when I type in my zip code, it says that it doesn't fit the parameters.
Okay, get my zip code 95330. That's gonna be the dummy zip code, okay? And then I'll know it's me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Claire.
Hi, can I ask for the date of participation, is that just for today, even if we plan to be at all four?
Every day there's gonna be a different code.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay. Well, so we are transitioning into the real juicy part of today, our presentation. Evgeny, who do we have with us today? Who's our guest of honor?
Our great guest of honor is my esteemed colleague, Dr. Hagit Arieli-Chai, the director of the Hebrew program at USC. Hagit specializes in language acquisition and proficiency with a particular focus on communicative competences. She holds a Ph.D. from the University of Strasbourg and is certified by ACTFL as a national oral and written language tester. As I mentioned, currently a professor at the School of Jewish Studies at USC, Professor Arieli-Chai integrates the history and culture of Israel into her language courses. Her scholarly research centers on language acquisition practices, the linguistic phenomena of Hebrew roots, and cultural competency. She also works on testimonies and translation, exploring their role in language and identity formation. It's my great pleasure to welcome Hagit, and thank you, Hagit, for accepting our invitation to be our first speaker in this first series. So this is great.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for this opportunity to really be part of this wonderful initiative and seeing everyone here. I'm sure after a long day of work, and I'm happy to be the first one. So and as I said, this Zoom conferences hasn't been recently a practice. I'm kind of enjoying coming back to it in a way. So welcome everyone, and I would like to share with you also something that is my passion. And when I'm just going to give you a little bit of an anecdote about my route to language and art, and how I found that bridge also personally. Two fields that I'm very passionate about, and that I always found that it's a way of communication, languages and an art as a text, as interpreting idea, as a way for us to communicate, to transfer, to send messages. And I was fond of this since I was a kid, and I found it always fascinating. And I kind of put it on a side. I thought that it's something that you've got to be an artist to really, engage in that. And then my professional career developed into a language acquisition, and interested in languages and history and culture. Yet when it comes to a time that I wanted to find something that really interests me in the language, I found out how art is a tool for us, anyone, whether you're a teacher, learner, any individual, to communicate, to express, to find a channel to a new world, and to find a new language also. So with that said, I'm going to start my presentation today and share with you that some artists that I picked randomly, some artists that my favorite, some artists that I felt like everybody knows, but by all means, every image that I share can be replaced with anything. So it's really what's behind here is the ideas. And I think I need, oh, I have, great. Okay. So here we are. Yes, everybody sees my screen. Yes, good, great. So we're bridging language and culture and how art in a second language acquisition, how it plays a role. And whenever you start a presentation, you always debate what type of an image you want to put on. So I picked this one is by an artist by the name Vasily Kandinsky. And the reason I picked that is because there's so many ways to look at it, and there's not, and everybody can look at it and every day and see something else and can interpret it differently. And I think with language, there's also so many ways to communicate. Yes, there is like the literal translation, but also there's a way that we can explain things. So when you look at this image, just share with me, what do you feel when you see an image like that? What do you associate? What association comes to your mind, if anyone wants to kind of, throw in some... No one? Go ahead. Go ahead, Maria.
For me, it would be happiness, because I see a lot of colors, like vibrant colors, yellow, and that's how I feel when I see it. Happy.
Great, great. So happiness, colorful, yes. Anyone else wants to
Somehow I feel a sense of calm. I don't know why, but it's just my immediate reaction to this.
Great. One more reaction, anyone?
Complex and abstract.
Good. Complexity. There's something abstract. Yes. I see something that is unknown. It's not clear. And there are different angles here. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So this is okay. It says a new use of sorry. Now we jump few. I'm sorry, I'm using a new okay, great. So okay. The next thing I want to ask you is okay, great. What helps you the most to learn a second language?
Plenty of opportunities to practice.
Okay, a lot of opportunity to practice. Great.
For me, it would be input, like having a lot of input, either in the classroom setting, if I am learning this at a school, but also outside, like continuous input.
Great. Deborah, go ahead.
For me, it would be like immersion into the culture and everything. Like actually going to Mexico helped me a lot growing up to actually learn Spanish very well.
Great. Can I hear more? So really the origin where the language is spoken, yes, the country where the language is spoken. Yeah. Anyone else want to share what helped you the most to learn a second language? Or a foreign language. I should really be careful here to say also a foreign language, because some languages, if they're not spoken at the country that you are residing and they're only spoken, for example, Hebrew is a foreign language because you can only hear it in Israel. So here when students are studying Hebrew, it's considered as foreign language. So either a second language or a foreign language.
I think listening to music.
Music, great. And again, everybody has his own personal, experience, his own personal, I would say, way of processing also. So any other, somebody else wants to share?
Yeah, my name is Annabelle, and I will say talking to people of that culture and language, and probably watching movies also. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Could cross-linguistic transfer work where, I mean, that's the way when I was in Italy, because I already know English and Spanish, I kind of just put what I already know and I was trying to apply it to what I'm listening and to what I'm seeing. And so that helped a lot.
Yeah, making parallel and referencing. Yes. Well, it's great because when you have language from the same families, it's gives you some hint how to do a transfer. Great. Okay, so I guess everybody has his own way of, and again, everybody has, you know, different affinity, different strength, different ways of processing language. So let's move on. Okay. So I want to just give you a little bit of introduction to somebody that Eugene Habermas, that is, you know, philosopher and a writer. And, you know, when we talk about communication and how we communicate, language is our form of communication, and there are so many ways. And you just told me how it's a way for you to learn to communicate in the language in different modes. And it talks about that, you know, we have instrumental knowledge, you know, acknowledging that there are multiple perspectives rather than one, you know, single one, relying on one way. There is the linguistic analysis. Language shapes our reality, how I communicate, how I see things. But the way we communicate defines its impact. How I'm going to say this. Is this a way for me to really make this clear and obvious, and it's and the intonation I'm using, and every culture, you know, the way they speak is very different. You obviously, we share with me that if you go to Italy and if you go to Israel, also people speak a lot with their hands, and the hands is something that is culturally a way for pronouncing and emphasizing certain ways and certain linguistic even patterns. Knowledge is filtered through the human perspective. Yes, I can see something, I have my brain to do the filter, but it should not be confined to just one. There's so many ways for us, you know, to view things, and our mind just filters in its own way. But language, we want to make sure there's pragmatism here, that we are giving some tools for our learners to really communicate in a very pragmatic way. So reason is not merely strategic, it's a process rooted in a communicative rationale. And what do we mean by that? The strategic reasoning refers to, well, a student memorized words by labeling object in a painting. That's a strategy. This is very strategic rationale. I want him to learn a specific set of vocabulary. Then there's a communicative rationale. Well, the student discussed the emotions and the theme of the painting. They start negotiating meaning with peers and refining their understanding through a dialogue. So we've got here, like, it's an amalgam of two things together, that they have to attain vocabulary, yet they also want to communicate this effectively. So I like Habermas, you know, communicative rationality, and I wanted to share that with you. And that's kind of, you know, a way for us to segue into. Okay. So I want to also give a little bit of a theoretical background and foundation to language, culture, and identity. I'm not sure today I will have enough time really to maybe discuss identity, but it will be in an indirect way, that it will be introduced and will be talked about, because you know, part of the art and the images and the pieces of art reflect, you know, identity, whether it's individual or national identity. So it definitely, it's going to touch upon that, but I'm not sure I'll have enough time to really discuss identity as a whole as a learner in the process of learning in second language and foreign language. So if we look at the socio-cultural theory, that Vygotsky work emphasized that the social and cultural context of language learning, and highlights that the interaction shape the linguistic development. Yes, how we interact with the language, how we use the language, that shapes, you know, the linguistic development. And according to Vygotsky and the sociocultural theory, which is called SCT, the community, culture, and individual mind are inherently dialectical relationship as a semiotically organized function system. So it's not separate. We're always in a dialect, always in a mode of communicating. Okay, it's not separate. The linguistic relativity, okay, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which, back, in the 1948, and it was later on rejected, but we're still going back to it, refer to it, because the hypothesis suggests that the language influences thought and perception. Yes, how we communicate, how we think, and shaping our worldview and identity. And nowadays, I think there's so much awareness, I would say, about identity across the board in so many disciplines, and in particular in language, because we understand that identity is a multiple facet of how a learner comes into our classroom, and he always in negotiation of identity as you learn the new language or the target language. And just a side note that Bonnie Norton is one of the very leading scholar in the field of language and identity, and she talks a lot about this negotiation through learning a language, and it's quite fascinating. So I quoted here that language is a guide to social reality. It powerfully conditions all our thinking about social problems and processes. The real world, yes, we want the students to really be able to function in the real world, to go to the country where the language is spoken and to feel that they're part of this world. They are not foreign. As much as it can be seamlessly, yes. And of course, that takes a lot of practice, takes the time that they have to invest in that. It's unconsciously largely built up on the language habits of the group. So no two languages are ever sufficiently be considered as representing the same social reality. So the world in which different societies live are distinct world, not merely the same world with different labels attached. And I think it's going back into the reality of how each learner creates his own world, and he sees, the things in a different way. And then looking at the intercultural competence. So I brought this model because I think this model really speaks to a lot of us, and what we are aiming, gearing to really bring in our classroom. And it's the intercultural competence, how the student really sees his own culture that is coming from, and the culture that is learning, and how are they intersecting, and how we can really view the difference and maybe the similarity between the cultures, yet accepting and seeing it as intertwining. So Biram model emphasizes the importance of cultural artifacts, and obviously including the art in developing language skills and cultural understandings, which allowing the learner to access and analyze, cultures, practices, values, and perspective through tangible expressions like art, which helps them build critical cultural awareness and interpret cultural meanings effectively. So essentially, when we are using the art, the students, the learner use the art, it kind of gives them a window into the culture, which helps them deepen also the language comprehension and perception. So now I want to pause for a minute here, and I want to ask you, okay, if you have a sort of like a tangible or any image of something that you feel you brought into your classroom, and you feel that students were able to hook and to pay attention to it and become more aware of it, if you can share any incident, any time that you introduce something in your classroom of whether it's an art or anything that is tangible that students felt connected, deepen their understanding. Anyone?
Skull from the Dia de los Muertos would be something.
Okay, great. Any other?
Yeah, something comes to my mind. I was teaching a unit on Bolivia, and we were reading a book called El Equeco, which is a symbol that is it's kind of like a figure that supposedly brings good luck. And I bought one from Amazon, and I brought it to the classroom, and I feel that the students connected so much more to the story just by being able to touch the little figure and see it and pass it around. And then it became part of our classroom, and they would just include El Equeco for activities. So I think that just because before I didn't have it, and then after I bought the figure, I saw so much engagement from the students.
Okay, great. Any other and it could be like a visual of anything associated. Any other story or okay, so let's say I have a little clip here that I want to share with you, and what is art? Okay, so let me share again the screen. Oh, wait a second. I have to, I remember that I have to press the sound and optimize the things that are, okay. Okay.
Art. When we hear that word, some of our minds jump to museums or framed paintings, and in that context, some people think, nah, I'm not a big fan of art, I just don't get it. Or they think of art as something that's just for intellectuals or artsy people. But really, art is for anyone who wants to experience it, and it's often in more places than we might realize. Songs you like, movies you watch, poems, theater, even a quilt that your grandmother made. All of that and more is art. So you might be wondering, well, then what is art? How do I define it? Well, that's tough. Art's been around for thousands of years, and through the ages it's evolved in a number of different ways. And the reasons for creating it vary from person to person depending on any number of factors. So defining art is pretty tricky, and it's something that's been debated throughout history. There just isn't one agreed.
Oh. Okay, but that's okay. So if I ask you now to think about art, how would you define it in the language class? Not in the language class, but for you as an educator, you know, as teaching, you know, language, how would you define art?
It would be a creation, something that we create. We don't necessarily need to be a recognized artist to create art.
I believe that art is the vehicle to which we teach our students as concept. Like, for example, if I want to teach them the concept on water cycle, right? I'm going to do the art, the sun and how the water gets, you know, forming the clouds and so on. So I'm going to use art to show the students about the water cycle. Thank you.
Right. So some sort of a diagram, an image. Okay. Great. Any other idea? Any other samples?
It's a creative medium to elicit some sort of response from the viewer. So it could be print, it could be physical sculpture, anything, but something that is designed to elicit a response from the viewer.
Thank you. Excellent. Great.
Poetry.
I feel like art is a way of expressing an idea, and sometimes it can be visual, but it can also be like word, right? Like to write is an art. Writing is an art. Like speaking can be an art. Crafting things can be an art, but like it's a way to communicate your ideas, I think.
As opposed to, okay, thank you, as opposed to ChatGPT sentences. Yeah, somebody was just writing also in the chat, like forming sentences, students expressing, that's also a form of art, great. Poetry, and then, so art can be many things. And I definitely see that there's ways of communication that is on multiple levels. So let's look at really now the power of visual art. So that's where I want to take you today into this journey of what's the power of visual art in the language acquisition. So our brain works in different ways, and we absorb, a different, stimulus, and art can give us the visual, the senses, whether it's a music, whether it's an image, a photography, different ways. It's a powerful tool because, it gives us a way for identify the culture. It's a cultural immersion. Visual art provides an immersive medium through which the learner can explore identity, history, societal values, making language learning a lot more dynamic and meaningful when we present something that depicts a value, a symbol, a sign. A student has an opportunity to really hook it with the words, with the narrative that it is associated with. And obviously, it can also enhance the proficiency when we're using visual art in a second language education that enhance the proficiency-oriented instruction. It aligns, with established pedagogical framework. And obviously, we can, use it as an assessment support. Art-based activities supports a standard-based assessment and provide an authentic context for language use and evaluation. Okay. So the pedagogical application, art and communicative competence. So there are few ways for us to use the art and in the communicative competence. There's the interpersonal communication. So students engage in meaningful discussions about the artwork, practicing real-world language use, what do you see, and a very basic descriptive, ideas. And then there's the presentational skill. Students, learn to develop a way of talking about public speaking, using the public speaking abilities to art-based presentation and critiques. So obviously with different levels of where we teach a language, we can align the assignment, whether it's just presenting, something very descriptive, or we wanted more presenting a critique. And art is also interpretive competence, where students can analyze artwork and together they can interpret complex visual and textual information and have discussions about it. So from the pedagogical, application, art, again, can serve, for all these three modes of communication. And we'll talk later and in a different, level of proficiency level, how we can match the activities. So let's talk about the role of culture in the language acquisition, because it's really a big topic. And by the late, I would say 1990s, with this big globalization, revolution came upon us. So the concept of culture was increasingly replaced by the modernist perspective and emphasizing historicity and subjectivity. So these approaches underscore the historical and subjective dimension of culture and viewing it as a co-constructed phenomena. And Gramsci, she's another applied linguistic researcher, she said that the membership in a discourse community that shares a common social space and history and a common imagining, even when they have left that community, its member may retain, and wherever they are, a common system of standards for perceiving, believing, evaluating, and acting is remained. So what does it mean by that? So a student comes to your class and is learning, the language that you're teaching, and is acquiring linguistic skills, and is acquiring cultural, motifs, and is acquiring cultural competence. This is something that is equipped with. This is something that he carries with him to understand that he's part of this community now. Even if he's not there right at the moment, but by acquiring the language, he's acquiring a culture. And Cramsh again is someone that I'm very fond of, because she talks a lot about her research, how language and culture are intertwined, and acquiring a language is synonymously to acquire a culture. I'm sorry, and I didn't want to. Okay, I want to go back into this into this image that you see, and in this image that you see, I'm curious to hear your reflection, and what do you sense, and what do you get when you see this image that I present you here? And I know you see some words here, and the words are in Hebrew. And I'll read you the words, because the words will also amplify something about the image that you see. And it says falafel im charif. And falafel is the food, falafel. Some of you are familiar with this. It's a very Middle Eastern popular street food. So when you look at this image, what do you sense? What are you getting at? What you can infer? What does it remind you of? Anything? Any thoughts?
So many different types of people smiling and enjoying this food.
Okay, great. So many people, great, smiling. It seems happy. Okay, thank you.
I imagine a festival, maybe on the weekend, they're celebrating a special date, and they all gather together to enjoy delicious food and music and each other.
Great.
I imagine maybe all these different types of people are kind of transported to that part of the world where that food is created through the food.
Okay. As again, so maybe food is like a connection, okay, to the culture. Great. Okay. Any other thoughts, sharing?
Just in like when it's Cinco de Mayo, everybody goes to San Jose or San Francisco, and we taste all different kind of food. And this case is falafel is one kind of food, and I see people enjoying, people from different cultural backgrounds and having fun. They look happy.
So sense of a community together, coming together. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Any other reflection? So if somebody looking at this as in my class, I would give you an example in learning Hebrew, and this is also something about the culture in Israel. Lots of different people, happy people out in the street. Something about Israelis that they love to be in the public space, outside in the street. Falafel is the immediate kind of food. It's inexpensive. Everybody gets it, from young to adult. It's accessible in every corner, showing that it's crowded. Maybe it's a festival, some sort of but it doesn't take much for them in Israel to get together, because the people like to be out in the street, and a lot of events happening also outside in the public space. People are happy, so also the food, okay, makes people happy there. So things that the learners in Hebrew class can attain, can really grasp from a painting, from this image. And this is, by the way, by an artist that is a cartoonist. His name is Michel Kishka. And he makes a lot of very fun cartoon and drawing that depict the culture. So I do use a lot of his images in the classroom to teach about Israel, about the culture. And through this, obviously, they attain vocabulary and able to describe different scenarios and have dialogue and so forth. So this is, I mean, I can share with you also his website after, because a lot of it is, you know, maybe with very minimal writing, or some of them even without, but very fun. So art is also as a semiotic system, yes. If before I showed you falafel, yes, the word falafel, you know, as is standing for something. I can say, if I say the word falafel, what comes to your mind? What would you say? What are the two things that you associate one thing that you associate falafel with? Anyone can tell me?
Delicious.
Arab culture.
Culture, what else?
Healthy.
Healthy. Okay, go ahead. What else? Falafel.
I think about food.
You think about food, so type of food, okay. But when you think about falafel in particular, because when I think about salsa, I right away, it's spicy, yes? When you say the word falafel, what comes to your mind? What the first association you make?
It's comforting, it's filling.
It's filling, it's comforting. Okay, very good. Anyone else? Happiness, happy, yes. Makes people happy. And obviously that image that you've seen, you saw people outside in the street and the word falafel on the top, because it's signs of happy, comfort, you know, easy access, you know, think too much, yes. And it's fried, yes.
And
Very
vegetarian.
Vegetarian, excellent. It becomes very popular. It's a vegetarian, yes. And in Israel, people will argue about healthy, mind you, because it's, you know, they make it so tasty that it's not always the best, the most healthiest, but, you know. Okay, great. So here is what we're talking about, words that are okay. Art is a semiotic system. So I can show you this, and it's a signified and a signified. So Ferdinand de Saussure, you know, as the model of that he founded in about the year 1907 or 1911. It talks about the semiotic system, and he proposed that each sign has two parts. Yes, it's a signifier and a signified. So there's the form, yes, that the sign takes, such as the sound, the image, the word, yes, and the signified is the concept, the meaning that it refers to. So obviously when we can look at any word and any image and symbol and painting, there's a way for us as a cultural encoding. There's a visual art encodes some cultural values and historical narrative. There is the cultural reflection. There's artwork that serves as a mirror for societal norms and values. Are people eating out in the street, or people eating only when they're sitting down? There's certain values or certain habits that each culture, you know, associate with. There's identity formation. It's engaging with art, contribute to the language socialization and identity negotiation, how we relate to it. And there's the meaning making, and the art provide a rich context for interpreting and creating meaning in the target language. So if I'm looking at a painting or an image or any sort of a symbol, you know, I can make meaning and how is it applied in my culture, and what I can tell about it in historically or culturally that relates to the target to the history of the where the target language is spoken. Okay. Now we're getting into art as a semiotic, and here I want to present you with an example. And I chose this example, and it's a little bit cut off, but it's majority of the painting you can see here is by Marc Chagall. This is a painting that you can see that has some symbols here. And what are the symbols that you see? What are the symbols that you can identify in this painting?
I can see music.
Okay, so there is the music, the instrument, there's the violin here. Okay, okay, great. Anything else somebody can identify here?
I guess the cow is a symbol, but I'm not
Okay.
sure of what.
That's everything here is a symbol for something, and absolutely, yes, the calf. And
The flying angel in the
the
background.
flying angel in the background, very good.
Also, I'm not very sure of what the man has on his hand.
Okay, very good. That's exactly what I'm taking you now. So here is this is the Torah. It's the scroll, the 5 books of Moses, and apparently this guy that he painted here is a Jewish, you know, in the village where Mark Chagall grew up, and he grew up in Belarus, and then it's a very much depicting of some symbols that the painter, you know, associate with his childhood, with his culture, with the culture that he grew up. And the Torah here, the Torah right here, is a symbol that Mark showing this in a lot of his painting, because it's actually anchored him to his roots, to his, you know, identity as being Jewish. And you can see here the Jewish star if you look closely. The violin is another symbol that is using here because it's a music, and music was part of the Jewish community also, as singing and using the violin. So another symbol. The cow here is a sign of work, okay, and how we recall, you know, a lot of the people in the village, you know, having a cow that was, you know, for work, for food, for the milk. And the angel here. And the angel here can be there are very different ways to interpret the angel, but when you think about an angel, what do you think?
Religion.
You think about religion, but what is it, you know, if you're talking about what does it stand for, what does it signify, using the Caesarian, you know,
I will say that the angel, I'm thinking of the guardian angel, or the angel who will bring you news from God or something.
So protection, it can be, as you said, guarding, protection, bringing you a message, yes, sending you a message. So the angel has the association of you know, of a messenger, bringing you news, protecting you, guarding, yes. So there's this symbol here. So for students, when they see this, there are many ways for them to really relate to it, as a sense of learning the maybe some of the biography of the painter, but also it's kind of mirroring the history of the Jewish people when they lived in East Europe. So so it's kind of giving them a window into the history, and also brings them into the current time, how we're still holding with this. The Torah is still our anchor wherever we are, whether we're in the diaspora or we're in Israel. This is our, you know, our edifice. This is our core. This is what we're holding into. This is our system of belief. So I'm giving you, I chose this example since I'm also using this a lot in the classroom, but also to show you that this can be used in various different ways, and art is a semiotic, can give this cultural encoding. And the visual art encodes cultural values and historical narratives. So there is a narrative behind here that, you know, students can learn and can share and can talk, and also can relate to this narrative, how they can relate to it in their own world today. So this image can, or this painting is a way for them to experience the cultural richness and the historical tale. It helps them to develop a deeper understanding and appreciation for the nuance of the language, identity, and the human experience, how, living at that time, and what were the values that were very much dominant at that time of living in outside of Israel and the diaspora, how the community had their life, and bringing them into the journey and how today life is, it also gives them a way to engage the experience, what that empowers them to develop communicative competence, while also, as I said, fostering greater sense of cultural awareness and their identity. So it also serves as a mirror where I am today, yes, and how is, my culture, looking back, 100 years ago, how things used to be. And then this is also a window to share about their grandparents, what they recall, the tales that they telling them. So we bring in the language and to make it a very personal. So it's not just a historical, narrative. It's really bringing it to my close, immediate environment, and bringing it to my heart, close to my heart, close to my experience nowadays. Yes. So that's one way of looking at this. And again, every painting, I'm going to go back just for a second. Every painting I chose related to the language I'm teaching, but you can already think in your head, which we're going to soon maybe do it also, about any painting that you feel like can bring into your classroom, and the student can engage with it and see something that relate to the culture, to the history of the language that you're teaching. So now, understanding culture through the visual art, and you can see that there are so many ways that we can engage. And you can see already that in the center of this image, you see a very famous painter and a person, and we can do a lot with that. And in every classroom, I would say, not just in a Spanish classroom, but I chose Frida Kahlo because again, it's somebody that is as being an image of beyond just an artist, of somebody who represents so much strength and identity, model for somebody who strived, in a time that it was a very challenging time. So here is an example how students can share feelings about, if you introduce a painting by Frida Kahlo and her portrait, what are some of the feelings that comes up? What are some of the insight? What are the values? What are the dynamics that can come out when you look at that image? And I understand that some of you are coming from, different schools and different actually age group, and that can be also modified, into something that just by asking, what do you feel when you see her? And sharing just the emotion, about her painting, about who she is. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now to really tell me, when you see a portrait by Frida Kahlo, what are the emotions that associate with, what are the ideas also that comes to your mind when you see her portrait?
Whenever I see a portrait, like for example, where are the two Fridas and they are connected, and then involves a lot of blood, and I feel like suffering, like a lot of suffering. I'm not sure if this was when she lost her child. I don't know if was related to it, but whenever I see this portrait, it's like she was suffering a lot at this time. I'm not sure if I'm right.
Yeah, no, it's I absolutely, but I appreciate, because we do see different things and feel different things, and then definitely it's our experience also with art. But beautiful, yes, the suffering, yes. Anyone else wants to share?
I can share. I see someone who's she's strong and she perseveres despite everything that she went through. Probably starting when she was very young, she was very bright, and then she had that accident where she almost died and she wasn't able to have children, and she lost her child, and she incorporates all this into her art. So it's almost like you see what is happening through her life, in her life, through her art and her marriage to Diego Rivera. And
Yes.
just, I see someone who went through so much, but yet she was strong. And yeah,
So-
she had moments of depression probably, but she just kept moving ahead, and the art was probably an outlet.
Absolutely. So in the case study, if I look at Frida Kahlo and the self-portrait and using in the Spanish classes, and there's a first part that we say, okay, we want to have vocabulary building. We want students to learn about her facial parts. We want students to be able to talk about emotions and any symbols even that they can attach to it, something vivid that they right away can see in a very starting level. Yes. Student can even talk about the different colors, what she has in her head, and say, okay, I can identify the word for hair, for nose, all the parts of this. And then there's another part, another level that it will be a cultural discussion. And some of you just kind of, even throw some ideas here. Feminist, struggle, gender role, her identity. She's an artist. What's the art served for her. And there is the part that also comes that, okay, there's a place for creative expression. Students can create their own self-portrait or choose a portrait that they, relate to, that they favored, and describe it and say why. I mean, and again, look at what are the, words that they can build around, using, the facial, expression and the facial parts. So that's an example of using a self-portrait. With portrait, it's also, I use, the portrait of Marc Chagall, the artist I introduced you before, because also it's a good way for my students to really see something when I talk about eyes and ears and mouth and all that, and have something that they can hook it with, and have something that is vivid, that is, even if the mouth is big or the nose is, sharp, or the face, or something that is very colorful, I feel that the student have a better recollection of the vocabulary. And I can tell you that from my experience, I had students that visited the museum of Marc Chagall, which is in Nice, and they walk into the museum and they were able to really use a lot of the vocabulary that they were associated with a lot of the painting, and use, because of in a lot of his painting is using body parts that are disproportionately, and that was a very fun activity to really use, the words with the adjective, because they're so disproportionate, but it's really exaggerating them. So a very good way to also recall the vocabulary. Okay. All right. So now we're looking at another artist. And I picked, very famous pieces also. And if you're looking at, Picasso, the Guernica, and look at that, and there's so much without you can do. And again, I chose that just for the sake of giving you the tools, but you can choose any type of an art piece and look at what are the historical contexts. What's the visual that can be seen, that can be, pulled from this art? What are the emotional impact here? Okay. So if I'm looking at this one and I'm asking you, what are the historical context? What is the historical context of this art?
I think, if I remember, this time Spain was going through a war, and I see on the right side somebody with a face like very sad, like very desperate. I see pieces of body parts all around, and a horse that is like very afraid. And it was the resemblance of the war that Spain was going through in this time period when Picasso doing.
Beautiful. Yes, basically Picasso was very daring, and this was really his message to Francisco Franco and to Nazism, and you know, that's why it's named Guernica. So with that saying that, I'm just giving this as an example that you teach language, but there is an historical, you know, baggage that comes with it, and that there's historical, you know, you unpack historical and cultural, you know, events that are part of the language and are part of the dialect, and there is a context, and that's also serve as also an image to help students understand, you know, whether the roots, whether the, you know, how the history also shaped the way we speak and the way we interact and the way we express, you know, different things. And then, yes, there's a part of the visual analysis here on what are the symbols that are used. As I showed you before, in the, you know, there's certain symbols that appears in the Jewish, you know, with Marc Chagall, that you would see a lot of biblical images, and you see always the Torah and the violin. It's kind of, you know, symbols that keep appearing there, and there's a reason for that, to show that something that is historically for generation, you know, has been part of the dialect and the context of the language. So, you know, where you chose a visual, you want to say, okay, what are the visuals that I want to now emphasize, and I want the students to be able to hook into the vocabulary, into the story that they're going to be able to share, and to the context that they're going to be able to discuss. And of course, every image or every painting and every illustration has this emotional impact. And this is, again, for you as an educator, I leave that for you to really select the one that is appropriate for the age, for the time, for the context, for the level of language that you are teaching, okay? So let's look at these two practical examples, okay? I chose, I think, two that are, this is Marc Chagall, I in the Village, and the other one is Van Gogh, you know, the Starry Night, very, you know, popular, very famous. I'm not sure if you are so familiar with Chagall, but I'm happy to introduce you to his artwork, because it's a lot of fantasy and a lot of imagination, yet within there, there's a lot of symbols, and these symbols are the ones that help students to associate the vocabulary, to be able to talk about the history and how they relate to it, and how it's also relate to them, okay? So if you're looking at the Chagall I in the Village, and you're describing the very whimsical imagery, yes, which floating figures, nothing is really is grounded. Everything is very floaty. So there are words that here I'm looking and I say, okay, I can say something that is very surreal, is whimsical, is nostalgic. So these are words that would be associated with this painting. And I always try to also give students words that are in Hebrew, that are our cognates, to start with them and then adding more, yes, into the vocabulary. And if we look at this, you know, painting of Van Gogh, The Starry Night, so here we're describing, you know, what is the first thing the student can describe here? Can you tell me what's the first thing the student can describe here when they look at this? Can they describe colors?
I was gonna say the colors on the
color. Thank
yeah.
you. Mm-hmm.
The sky.
Then, go ahead, please.
Being able to determine, like, to say animals versus natural features in landscapes.
Mm-hmm. Great, Nofi, right, thank you. Okay. And as we said before, there's maybe students can, after they are able to learn vocabulary and they're describing, there's the description part of attaining the vocabulary. Now how they can express emotions, what they feel about this, what they can associate with this. And that's kind of the part that helps them also feel closer and have an image that they can associate certain vocabulary and emotion with, okay? So if you're looking at these two images and I'm asking you now, what are if you look at choose any of them. And I would want to, maybe it's a good time now to have a little bit of a breakup room, and then talk about using one of them, and see how we can, and I can put that in the chat, and see how we can develop some sort of an activity for the different level. Like the first one would be some sort of descriptive vocabulary and just observation. But what other activities students can I can do with this painting for students with in my language class? Okay.
How many minutes? How many minutes?
Let's just take maybe let's see, what time is it? Can we do like 5 to 10 minutes? What's
There's 8 minutes. 8 minutes, and I made
yeah.
groups of three to four, so that everyone has time to share.
Yes. Okay.
I'm ready to open when you tell me.
Yeah. So again, I would I'm gonna actually write it in the chat. Like think about 4 activities that in different levels that you can do with your students. Okay. And the painting, again, you can choose the painting I selected, or you can, if you want to come up with your own painting that is more relate or associated with your culture, it's okay. I just picked like Vincent van Gogh because it's a very popular, but feel free to, and Marc Chagall, but feel free if you want to share your own painting, that's okay too. Okay.
Shall I open?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you've been randomly assigned, so enjoy your new friends. See ya. So, Hagit, after this one, we need to start wrapping up.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, because I mean, it's totally fine. I think this is a good, the fact that there's time for folks to talk and collaborate is fantastic. Yeah, but I mean, the end time was 6 o'clock, right?
That's what I thought, and this is where I a little bit said doing it more interactive, because I thought you said to me 6 o'clock.
Right. Because I mean, we didn't. This is great. I mean, we didn't want to overload people, so we told them. I mean, the presenters, to say that you have to present for 90 minutes. So we said, well, present for like 45 to 1 hour, and then we do half hour of like exchange. But this is just fine. So I mean, it's not a problem. When you are done, I'm gonna give some information about if they are going for unit and credit, and that will be the wrap up for the day.
Okay, so I do have a few more slides here because I was gonna, I mean, a few more things that I wanted to share, but I thought I have till 6:30. I mean, that's why I kind of gave them the breakout.
No, our time is 6, and but then no problem. We won't do any other breakout rooms today.
No, yeah, and I'll maybe I will close it. You said 8 minutes, okay.
Yeah, so it is gonna go until like 5:54, more or less.
Then you want me to end at 6, you said?
Yeah, so then I can I will just give the information about the units for those who are just like interested, but then those who are not, then they could just go leave.
Okay, all right. All right, so I guess I'm just gonna skip to the next few slides. Yeah. Because I was going to talk about the assessment. Um, okay. I think we should call them back because it takes
44 seconds, and it has a 10-second countdown added to that.
all right, great, thanks. So I will send you the article, later tonight. Yes.
One or two, as you see
Yeah.
fit.
Mine is not yet published, so it's still in the process about this topic in particular, like this.
It
So
could be yours or another or someone else's that you find related.
yeah,
However it works.
I have a couple of them that are related to this, but this particular one that I'm writing now, it's not, it's in the making, so I can send it in. Yes, okay. Okay, here we are back. Yes, okay. All right, how is everyone? You got a time to chat a little bit and get to know some new friends? Great, great. So I thought I'll have more time, but apparently Eduardo is just telling me we have to wrap this up by 6. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna leave this for you as a sharing experience, but I'm unfortunately we don't have time now to share it with the whole group. But hopefully you got a chance to brainstorm, to share, to be influenced and inspired, and thought about great pieces of art that you can now maybe share with your students and bring to your classroom, and that's kind of the idea. So I would. I'm just going to share the last couple of slides with you, and then...
Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude. Will those slides be posted on any site like the others? I mean, we had a Google Classroom.
I will send this to
Eduardo,
and I'll be happy to share this with you. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
And there are
we
more
could use that in class.
Yes, you can just get ideas, and I'll be happy to, of course. So here's the last couple of pieces that I intended to also share with you and maybe do some activity, but building on storytelling and a narrative, with art. So here are some also other 2 pieces of art that I selected here, and this is another very famous, painting, the Nighthawk, and this is again gives an opportunity for students to imagine, stories and figures and build narrative using past or future tense. Again, how the way you want to craft it to your class and to the level. Okay. Chagall, The Lovers, it's another very famous, again, you see them always floating. It's always like, this is also gives a sense of, use imagination. When you want students to kind of be more imaginative and expressive, it can be also to build dialogues. Learning can create dialogues with this, journal entries, writing a love letter. That was a very big success in the classroom, like, seeing this very imaginative, couple flying, hovering over a town and writing some sort of a love letter. So again, it's a chance, to inspire the students, to let them open up more and in a creative way, and to imagine and to use their imagination and to practice, the language in more with emotions, more with descriptive part in it. I want to just, okay, these are other 2 that I think we discussed, but the assessment part, and I talked about this, and here in this, you would see that I use also the assessment according to ACTFL, but also according to the CEFR, which is the European benchmark, and gives a little bit more, ideas. Identity part, I didn't get a chance so much to talk about, but this is another big component that art can also help to really discuss identity, because as I said, students that are entering a class and learn a classroom and learning a new language, they are negotiating their identity. They're not the same without, the language that they are learning. Yes. And that's another way to empower them in a sense of how the art that they are learning can be also in a sense a dialogue for them, to sense as a new speaker into the language, and as a newcomer to the culture, also how they form their identity. Okay, so as a conclusion, I want to say that art is a transformative tool, and it can be used in so many different ways. And I hope I gave you a little bit of a taste of each one. It's definitely an immersive learning, and it can be aligned with the standards of teaching and the proficiency according to, the benchmark that you're using. And there's also, it opens up to some sort of a future research that we should explore how this impact, our learning in the classroom and whether the outcome. I personally really views art in various, ways in my classrooms, and I've seen that the students are remembering certain parts from a specific artist that stays with them, and they can attach it to a story, whether they wrote that story or whether through the art they learn an historical, narrative. For example, I was introducing them to the formation of the city of Tel Aviv, and there's a whole an artist that was a young boy that painted and illustrated Tel Aviv in the very beginning, years, and that helped them remember the whole story of Tel Aviv, the historical event, how Tel Aviv was founded. So that was very interesting. I do hope that this, leaves you with a great, I would say, impression, and with a great reinforcement to really use the art, because it's the effect of painting is a codependent on the immediate impression produced by its own painterly language and on natural language, narrative knowledge, and the semiotic of culture. So certain elements are indicated entirely in the painting, while others are part of the broader context. So Arshav, which was literally a theorist and he specialized in comparative literature, he added that painting is created in a cultural world, and at the same time, at the personal realm. It is the realm that echoes the artist's interpretation of his own or her world. And again, every student, interpreted into his own or her world. And I hope that will be leaving an impact on your student as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hagit, for the presentation. Round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you so much for
a real privilege to learn from you, and it completely gave me the feeling of, when we are close to learning institutions and you see the opportunity. I mean, this idea of like being able to have a remote presentation such as this gives us that proximity, this opportunity. Okay, I want to learn something new today. I want to be inspired. And I don't need to physically transport myself to a university. The university comes to me. So I appreciate it so much. We all do. I believe that Evgeny has a resource that he would like to share, right?
Well, I also want to thank Hagit and just say that, art, paintings is such a easy way to incorporate culture and fulfill the 5 C's that, ACTFL, not all, but, at least some, certainly connections to cultures. And it's such a great tool. I personally have like a collection on my desktop, on my computer. I have folders with paintings that I've been collecting, paintings by Russian painters that, categorized by like family, house, I don't know, food, and I actually have printed them out. So whenever we work on that topic, I have this easy, quick illustrations for this topic, for this vocabulary, and something for us to talk about. I also wanted to, and sorry for self-promotion, I wanted to share this games and activities that we developed for OK Cards, but they will work great for paintings. So a lot of these activities would work for visuals that we've seen today. And I'm also going to share a file with you that has on the last page, there are questions that you could use, and they all are broken down by level. And again, they can be used to describe any painting or most paintings, most visuals. So the last page of that file will contain those questions. Hopefully they will be helpful in your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Evgeny. Indeed, we've seen the OK cards. They are really useful. I mean, and we highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And
Sorry for all this for self-advertising, but I think it's
well, you
very
know,
relevant, yeah, to
it
this
is.
topic.
I mean, we've seen them. I mean, I don't make a dime out of those, and I'll tell you, those are cool. Hey, so here's the thing. It's already 6:03, and we want to be respectful of your time. So basically, what we are saying to you is, well, if you are interested in units, hang on, because I'm going to explain it just to those who want to stay later for the unit matter. Okay, I'm going to take 5 more minutes of your time. If you are not interested in units, you don't need them, we really sincerely hope that we get to see you on our presentation on March 25th about how bilingualism is going for students in Europe and what they have to say about it. So again, we continue with the speaker series. If you are now leaving, we would want to thank you for your time, for spending your late afternoon with us, or whatever time it is, wherever you find yourselves. Thank you. See you soon. If you are going for units, stay.
Thank you, everyone that participated after a day of work, and for your enthusiasm and participation. And hope to see you again. If there's any question, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to also, and Eduardo, you can also share my email with them. If they need any resources, any questions, ideas, please feel free to email me.
Thank you so much, Hagit. We'll be sending an email with this information collected as a follow-up to all registrants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Well, I just